Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Jo and today we've got my June favourites video. Thank you very much for watching and thank you for being there. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, you know that all of us YouTubers would love for you to do that, so please do that. And if you don't know about clicking the bell icon, that is what you need to have turned on. It has two little brackets around it when it's clicked so that you receive notifications of new videos just like this and whatever else I decide to talk about on my channel. Generally sewing. There's a feather in the air. So today we are not in my sewing room, we are in my lounge, in a little corner of my lounge that has got some new bits and pieces in it, so I'm loving it very much. This chair I upholstered last year myself. This cushion was a sale buy that I got this month, and the cabinet behind me I just love. Take a moment for those legs. Oh. And I got that for £10 off a local selling online group recently, so I am loving my bargain. But you came for sewing, or at least you came for my favourites. Also, I'm sat on the floor today. I thought I'd try, well, I wanted to get these in shot basically, so I might fidget. Normally I walk around and fidget, but today I might be sat down and fidgeting. So let's get into my favourites. I try to do the same categories every time I do my favourites, and the first one is my favourite Instagram hashtag or post. So today the hashtag is hashtag sezanelike, and this Cezanne seems to be a French fashion company who have real life shops in Paris and in London, and they also sell online, of course, because who doesn't these days? But sezanelike seems to be a hashtag that a lot of French sewists in particular, because it's a French brand, have used to show their take on Cezanne-like clothes that they have sewn. So under this Cezanne-like hashtag, a lot of the posts will be in French, but a lot of the photographs are beautiful. Oh. Yeah, I don't think that the myth of stylish French women is a myth. Certainly on this hashtag, it is nothing but truth. So I'll put you up a few examples, but the whole hashtag is just full of absolutely gloriously stylish clothes. Obviously Google Translate can help you out if you want to read some little translations you might want to know. So the French for pattern is patron. The French for fabric is tissue, I believe. And let me check other things you might come across, because that helps you to sort of read. To cut is coupon, as in coupon. Totally different meaning for us, but you can see the relationship. So coupon. You have pattern, fabric and cut. And that'll get you through quite a lot of the posts, obviously. Otherwise Google Translate, as I've already mentioned. So my next category is my favourite YouTube video or thing that I have watched. So my favourite YouTube video is, I'm going to mention another sewing YouTuber, which I don't often do, not because I don't like other sewing YouTubers, because clearly I do. There's lots of amazing people out there, but I don't want to play favourites, and we've all got our own opinions. However, when I did my What Did I Learn From Me Made May video, which was all about the style challenges I feel like I'm facing at the moment, or giving myself, I should say, a lot of people mentioned a lady who blogs or vlogs. She's called Whitney, but she vlogs under the name Tomcat Stitchery, and I had seen her videos pop up once or twice, but not got around to watching them. So I went over and I had a look, and yeah, she's a really engaging YouTuber. She's recently, in fact, at the time of recording, she's still going through a series where she's talking about how she plans out what she's going to sew, and not just what she's going to sew, but how she's going to use what she's already sewn in what she calls modules, which is not an idea that she got, it's an idea that she is also using from a stylist on YouTube. So if you haven't already watched Tom's Cat Stitchery, I know a lot of you have because a lot of you recommended her to me, but if you haven't, then I would definitely recommend going over and having a look, because she's really knowledgeable, she's really easy to watch and really friendly in how she comes across on camera. So I hope you'll enjoy her. So my favourite new sewing pattern. I've got loads this month. If you haven't already seen my one of my most recent videos, which was about discovering new patterns, I've been just looking out for new patterns, often via Instagram, and that sezanelike hashtag has led me to quite a few new French companies, which are really interesting and achingly stylish. But the one I'm going to pick out is the pattern that I picked out from the Pruella.de, forgot her name. So Pruella.de is the German website that I featured recently, and it's the cardigan with the inseam pockets. So I'll insert some photos, and I haven't made it yet. I'm kind of thinking like, well, it's summer, I'm not really supposed to be sewing cardigans, so I may keep it, but then again, it's throwing it down with rain today, so if that keeps up, I might want to sew a cardigan. But yeah, I really liked that cardigan, so I thought I would highlight it again here. My favourite me-made garment for June. I've been wearing the jumpsuit that I showed you last month a lot. So that's the black jumpsuit with the pink roses on it. But actually I thought I'd just go slightly off-piste with this, because I've made a couple of things this month which are fabric-based but not garments, and I'm just absolutely loving them. So I thought I would show you those instead, because yeah, they are my favourite me-made thing for this month. So I'm just going slightly out of garment into my favourite me-made thing. So the first thing, I'm going to get up and move the camera around. The first thing is some macrame. So again, I think it was a couple of favourites ago, I showed you my beginning attempts at macrame, and I've finished some and they're hung just above me. So I will see if I can get you a good view of those. Here we are. I have made 3 so far. This one is made out of proper macrame cord, and it's got a twisting macrame knot, and there's a spider plant hung in there and a little tassel on the bottom. And then this one is the one that you saw part made, and that is made out of fabric scraps. So it's made out of black jersey that I cut into strips. And again, it comes down to a tassel, but you can see how the tassel is slightly different. If I get in close enough, you can see how the tassel is a different effect to the fringing that I'll show you on the bottom of this one. So that is like a fully fringed tassel that I've frayed deliberately at the bottom, and there's a few more variations in this one going up. That's a square knot, it's called, I think, and then it's got the twisting knot at the top. So those are my 3 macrame makes, and then I'm going to move you across to the other side of the room as well to show you my footstool. Oh my god, I love this footstool. This, when I bought it, whoops, this when I bought it was a coffee table, and I've been after a large footstool to go against this sofa for a while. Let me tidy up the sofa. Bit more presentable. So I've been looking for a big footstool to go with this big sofa for a while, and I basically, if you want to buy something like this in the shops, you're looking at £200 plus for the kind of thing I wanted. I wanted it to be on legs. Didn't need a storage footstool, and just couldn't find what I wanted. I had the grey fabric. Now it looks like I've used it upside down. However, if you look at it when you're sat on the sofa, it's the right way up. So I ummed and ahed for a while about how to do that, but decided that one side was going to have to look upside down, and so it was going to be that. I'll tell you very briefly how I made it. Clamber over here. So it's a coffee table underneath. The legs were a lot longer to begin with, so I sawed them off, and then the table top is about here. now, and under here is a whole lot of stuff. I basically emptied out my fabric cupboard of all sorts of things. I had some foam seat pads that I bought at least 10 years ago to put on some dining chairs, which no longer need them, and they have sat in my cupboard for a very long time. So they were about half the size. So the first layer is foam, and then the second layer, what went under there? It was lots of insides of pillows, the kind of pillows you sleep on. And then on top of that was some felt that was from the inside of a sofa. And then on top of that, some wadding, just to make the top a bit more, actually no, that part way in there is a yoga mat because the pillow I decided was a little bit too, it moved around a little bit too much, it wasn't firm enough. So I added a yoga mat, which I had a part cut up yoga mats, surprisingly useful in upholstery, old yoga mats. So that is in there as a stabilising layer. And then of course you staple it all together. So if I turn this upside down, these are on here because when I painted the feet, I didn't want to get paint on the rug whilst it was still curing, but I think it's 2 weeks ago, so I think we can take those off. So you can see that, and then it is just stapled under here, which would be the standard way to upholster. And then I painted the legs afterwards, simply because I wanted to do the upholstery. I was excited to do that, so I didn't want to wait. Why would you want to wait? I didn't want to wait to do the upholstery for the legs to dry, so I did it the other way around. So there you go. Those are my favourite me-made, not garments. Since I finished university about 6 weeks ago, I have been doing house things quite a lot because there is so much in this house that has been waiting for 2 years as I have been doing my university work, and lots of half-finished projects, or not half-finished projects, but half-finished rooms. So that's a bit why I've got new cushions and I've got a new piece of furniture because things have been niggling me, and now I'm starting to address them all on a budget, but I'm starting to address them all. Okay, I need to go away for a minute to get my favourite purchase and my favourite gadgets. Wait there. Okay, I'm back. My favourite purchase of this month is leather. Some leather. I have two skins here. One is a mint green. It's very dark green on the suede side. It's a lot darker than that actually in real life. Let me see if I can get a better colour. Yeah, a bit like that. So that is the suede side, which is not necessarily the side that's intended to be used. And this is the green side. Yeah, it's coming out very blue. It is not blue, it is really mint green. I'll put it there. Yeah, that's a bit better, still quite bright. And then this colour, oh look at that. It's a really bright coral. So the back, again, I opened the package and the first colour I saw was that. I was like, oh god no, that's not the colour I thought I was getting. It's an amazing colour, but it wasn't the colour I was trying to get. And this side is the coral. Oh, it smells good. I love the smell of it. So these are from a company called Pitard, and the green is a 0.45mm skin, and that refers to the thickness of the leather, and the coral is a 0.55mm skin. So I'm intending to make a belt with one or both of them. I haven't decided yet whether I'll make two belts, or I've got a potential project I might do with the mint. But if you're interested in how to choose and buy and sew with leather, because it is not as scary as you might think, then I will be very happy to do a video about that. So let me know in the comments down below if it's something that you're interested in, a little bit of information and demystification on leather, then I'll be very happy to oblige. But those are my favourite purchases. Just looking, I think some of the reds come off on the green. I need to be a bit more careful how I'm keeping those. They've just been over the back of a chair waiting for me to show you. But you can see the drape on it is like fabric. You could probably make gloves with this. And to be honest, it's a little bit thin for a belt. But I will be able to make it work because I'll just be able to back it with some fabric probably, and that'll give it a little bit more body for what I want to do. So those are my favourite purchases. Now, my favourite gadget of this month, I've got two and they're kind of chalk and cheese. So number one is a gadget that I'm going to bet 50p you have, and that is sewing needles, hand sewing needles. Ta-da. These are, I don't know why they were reduced, I guess the shop had too many of them, but that's why they've got a big dirty red sticker on them. These are called betweens, which basically means, I guess it means they're between something. You get a range, as you can see. I think if we go quite close and in, you get a range of thicknesses and to some extent length. The length range looks more because of how it is in the packet. But in this packet, yeah, you get a range of thicknesses, which is really useful because for a finer fabric you need a finer needle. And you get a range of lengths, and also the eye size varies with the thickness of your needle, because on a thin needle you can't put a big eye because it would just be a break. Now, the reason why I've been loving my hand sewing needles this month is just because I've been doing a few projects where there've been some really tricky parts that needed hand sewing. I could have forced it on the machine, but it would not have been as good a job, and so I've been doing quite a lot of hand sewing. One of them was this shirt, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in my What Have I Been Sewing in June, but the instructions weren't ideal and the pattern piece wasn't ideal, and there were a couple of places where I resorted to hand sewing rather than getting a rubbish job on the machine. And then the other, we'll zoom off again. So the other thing is this half-finished project, which is a doorstop. It's going to be a peacock. You can probably tell that by now. There have been points where it definitely didn't look like a peacock. And I've been attaching the tail feathers with hand sewing. And I've also embellished, if you can see there, I've embellished all the tail feathers with hand sewing as well. So the hand sewing there is decorative, but the attachment here, I could have used a hot glue gun, and I did nearly resort to that, but actually for long-term use, hand sewing, at least as well, if not instead of a hot glue gun, is going to be much stronger. So I've been doing some good old-fashioned hand sewing. The other thing, I said they were chalk and cheese, is a massive staple gun. Now, I love a gadget. That is why we have a section called Gadget of the Month, because I love a gadget. This beast, I bought it when I did the yellow chair next to me, which I think is about 2 years ago. I did have one of your manual staple guns, the kind of thing that at school they staple stuff to the wall with, and I struggled for a while with it, but it was just really annoying. And then my friend asked me to help her upholster a chaise longue. As usual with me, I have no training in upholstery. I was just working it out, making it up, looking it up on YouTube, and it worked. Just dropping bits out of the box. It worked fine. So I decided, because she was going to help me, she said she would help me buy a really good staple gun. So that is what I've got. It is a powered electric staple gun. It can actually also be a nail gun, but the nails it takes aren't very big. So it takes staples of this size, which I think are basically, so it takes staples that are about 1 centimetre deep, and it doesn't want to do it, does it? 1 centimetre deep and about 8 millimetres wide. These are great for upholstery. It will take slightly shallower ones, but obviously it won't take longer ones because the hole inside is a certain fixed depth. So it's a bit terrifying when you first use it. I will admit this is not plugged in, so I can poke bits, but the staples shoot out of that end. It has got various safety mechanisms, but it's still a bit scary when you first use it. But oh my god, it does a good job. It really does a good job. So if you're ever going to upholster anything, I mean the footstool, that's why I've been using it. But if you're ever going to upholster anything substantial and you like a Gadget, I ummed and ahed about whether it was worth buying because I think it was getting on for £100, so it's not cheap. But it's not going to wear out, and it makes such a better job. So if you can borrow one off somebody, definitely worth borrowing. If you are lucky enough to be able to afford to get one and you've got an appropriate job, I would recommend getting one. This is not sponsored, this is just an item that I own that I really enjoy using on the rare occasions when I use it. We're on our last category, and the last category is my favourite podcast or book. So I have a podcast and a book for you this time because I've found an awesome new podcast. I have already told you I've been doing loads of stuff inside my house this month, and so you won't be all that surprised to hear that my new favourite podcast is an interior design related podcast. It's the first interior design related podcast that I've found, and I've tried a couple more since then, and they're nowhere near as good as this one in my opinion. This one is called The Great Indoors. It is presented by a couple of British women based in the South. One of them is a TV presenter as well as an interior designer, so she's a designer first and she has done some presenting on design programmes on the BBC, and another one is a very successful interior design blogger. So it is Kate and Sophie. I'm not going to try and remember their surnames because I won't. But one of them has Sophie Robinson Interiors, so that's her, and Kate has Mad About the House, that is her blog. They're also on Instagram. If you like interiors, even if it's just for inspiration and pretty pictures, they're both really good to follow on Instagram. Their blogs are both really good to read, but most of all, this podcast is just really good. How many times can I use really good in one minute? Obviously, design, a bit like sewing, is a very visual medium, but they make it work when you're listening. I've been listening as I've been driving around, as I've been sewing, as I've been doing other stuff. At times when I don't want to have my eyes having to look at something, and my eyes are doing something else, like watching the road or doing some sewing. So I only want to listen, and they've covered all sorts of things like colour trends, like storage, like how to lay out a room, design crimes, which is a really funny little segment they do each time about things that they really hate to see, but it's not judgmental. It's all done in a very light-hearted, accessible, friendly way. So if interiors is something that you're interested in, I would definitely recommend you listen to that. 2 books. One I recommend you don't touch with a barge pole, and one I recommend you listen to. So the first book, this isn't about the book. The book might be awesome. It is about the narrator. The book's called The Invisible Library, and I downloaded it from Audible, and I lasted about half a minute before I returned it because it had the most annoying narrator in the history of ever. She was just awful. And I only read the reviews after I had downloaded the book, and every review, even the people who stuck to the end and liked the story, which were not many of them, every review did not like the narrator. So if you kind of like similar books to me, because I know some of you out there do like kind of fantasy and magical realism, that sort of thing, you're going to have to find a different way to access this book, like old-fashioned reading it, because her intonation is just that she goes up at the end of every sentence, and it doesn't stop throughout the whole book. I skipped forward. Can you see the annoyance on my face? I skipped forwards to several chapters ahead, thinking maybe she just does this at the start for some strange reason. No, she does it all the way through. So don't bother. Really don't bother. However, having had that experience, the next book I chose. I chose for the narrator, or at least I went to a narrator I love, not the usual way that I choose a book. However, I had been burned, and so I was going to a safe place. So the narrator's called Cobner Holbrook-Smith, and he narrates the Rivers of London series, which I've recommended before, and if you haven't read them, you need to. They're very good. And there was a new one out. I should recommend that too. It's called The October Man. It was amazing. Not actually narrated by Cobner because it is a totally new strand in the world, but if you are not aware of that, if you've never read the series, don't bother with this one because you need to go and read more of the series. It was just a little novella, so the audiobook's only 4 hours long and it'll be a little slim volume, but there is a new Rivers of London book out, and it I wasn't sure to begin with because it takes the story into a new direction, and Cobner wasn't the narrator and Peter Grant wasn't in it, and I was a bit like, oh, where have all my favourites gone? But as soon as I took that to one side, it was really good. So very pleased to have another one of those. So back on track. The book is called Wizards of Earthsea. It is part of a children's classic, although children's, it's one of those that crosses over like the His Dark Materials. It's suitable for children because there's nothing inappropriate in it, but it's definitely also a complex enough story to keep any adult reader entertained, I think. I don't know how many books there are. I think there are 6 in the series. They were written in the 1960s by Ursula Le Guin, I believe. You will have had a picture up here so you can see it. But I am nearly at the end of the first one, and it's been great. It's been really, really good. Expertly read, but also the story's been fantastic. So that was a really fortuitous find. So maybe it was meant to be, who knows? Anyway, that's the end of my favourites for this month. I hope you've enjoyed it. I would love to know your opinions on any of them. I would love to know what your favourites have been. I enjoy the conversation down in the comments below. I do my best to reply to absolutely every single one of them. And so far I've managed to keep that up. So that is my intention, because half the reason for me being here is to talk to you. Maybe that's the whole reason. Anyway, I'm in such a digressing mood. I'm going to end there, and I will see you again next time. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!